All right. Yeah, now it just popped in.
Recording. Okay.
Ding.
Yeah, nice job.
So yeah, it's really interesting. I'm like, it almost seems because a couple of years ago, maybe even longer, but I started getting in, down the YouTube rabbit holes of like spirituality and all the conspiracies and stuff. And it wasn't until like a year ago that I started talking about it, kind of
Nice.
openly and sharing. Because it got to a point where I was overwhelmed. I was like, man, I need to, I can't just keep thinking about this by myself. And so I ended up sharing. But then I found out that there's actually a ton of people that have become interested in the last couple of years into spirituality and, the whole deeper thought, higher consciousness genres. And I'm really interested in how you kind of got led down the spiritual path. So,
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think it started like 2012
yeah,
when yeah, when I came home from Norway and I was like, man, I
wow.
have a lot of stuff I got to figure out and just with myself, and so I
Yep.
started doing like therapy and talking to people and just my own issues and realizing that I'm not alone and I felt so alone. So kind of like you, I started talking to other people and realizing like I'm not the only one in this like battle.
Yeah.
And looking for a higher consciousness within myself. But it was really challenging because I didn't even know where to begin. And like you, I felt really confused and I'm like didn't know where to start. So that's where it started a long time ago.
Yeah. You said you went to Norway?
Yeah.
What was that about?
Uh love.
Ah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. How was it there? Was it frozen ice
Uh,
like you would imagine?
yeah. Like especially in the winter.
Huh.
It was cool, man. It reminded me a lot of home, like just driving through the mountains and
Oh,
so I
okay,
didn't really
similar
feel like I was too far away.
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
it's that's cool that you mentioned higher consciousness. That's something that's really blew my mind when I first, started discovering that possibility. Because at first it was all conspiracies, and then it kind of in the conspiracies it led to like the possibilities of energy and frequencies and electromagnetics actually affecting, things in reality. And then I started getting into the science behind consciousness and how it's affected by the frequencies and the energy levels, and the idea that our different emotional states put us, in different frequency patterns and different levels of consciousness. And there's a great author, David Hawkins, who talks about the scales of consciousness. And supposedly there's a vibration at the top that's like, um, they call it the omega, I think, or something, but it's enlightenment. And so I became extremely fascinated with this high level enlightenment consciousness. And then when I discovered that, it was almost like all the ancient spiritual masters like Jesus and Buddha, whether or not Jesus existed, but Buddha and, all these ancient teachers seem to be talking about this same higher level of consciousness. And so it's just super fascinating. What do you have to say on that?
I think that's really cool. I think a lot of religions tie into the same like mentality, whether they want to label it a god or not. Like it's
Yeah.
something that does exist. Although I think, and this is so cool because I was just talking to my boyfriend about it the other day, is like a lot of people want to claim like some type of like security blanket just to make yourself feel comfortable in believing something is out there. But I think
Yeah,
it's really just our own energy, and I don't even know what to label it, really.
yeah,
But a
that's
lot of religions do that.
they
It's
try
just
to
labeled
take
something.
the overall essence and put a name on
Yeah,
it.
that's cool.
Misconception of Santa in the sky.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
See, it's interesting. It's like it's something that was totally something you couldn't talk about, and then when you actually start bringing it up, people are like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I've already thought about it." It's amazing.
Yeah. So what got you on your journey? Like,
Well, it's see, that's crazy that you said 2012 earlier because that was the same exact time for me. It was a little bit before that because I was like leading up to 2012. I was like worried about the end of the world, really intense.
yeah,
Was going down all the rabbit holes there was for end of the world prophecy and propaganda, and that kind of after it didn't happen in 2012, it led to a little later kind of like more evidence. I was watching a guy that was talking about Planet X coming in and, another star system that would cause the pole shifts and all that. There was just tons of data and evidence and, they're bringing out all the reasons why the world's going to end. And it came to a point where I was like, all right, I can be scared and, try to build some kind of bunker and prep all kinds of food and I can go that route, which is pretty
mhm,
inaccessible to me at this point in my life. I'm like, that's not really easy. And so I'm like,
yeah,
I can do that, or the only other thing to do is get myself prepared inside. And so I realized, that's when I realized these yogis that just sit in meditation, blissed out. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, there is a way that no matter what happens in the world, I'm like, we can be at this state, this state of being where it doesn't matter. I don't know. But that kind of led me to all the research I got into. I've pretty much just gone down years worth of YouTube rabbit holes.
that's awesome. I mean, that's a really good point to bring up, like even yogis, because I do a lot of yoga. However, it's not a lot of meditation practice within my classes. But outside of that, even in this book I'm doing, they talk about meditation and like true meditation of of tuning in with yourself and your body. And I think that's really admirable that you want to achieve that state of awareness with yourself, that no matter what is happening to you externally, you have peace like within yourself. And that's really hard to do. I mean,
Yes.
yoga teaches you to kind of let your thoughts come and go, which is a form of meditation, but it's not as if you were kind of like just sitting there wanting to meditate yourself and put yourself in that trance. So it like teaches you some stuff, but I don't know. That's really cool.
Yeah,
I
no,
wouldn't
yeah.
have
What you're
guessed
saying
that.
is everything I've heard about it. Right on.
Yeah.
It's what kind of um what kind of I guess how are they structured, the classes you were mentioning?
Um, that's a good question. I've never been asked that.
Is it like you do like exercises for a certain, you know, I'm not really, I don't know much about it.
Um, it's definitely guided. So you go into class and you start out like slow, like on your mat. Usually you're lowered down to the ground, so you're like grounding yourself and setting an intention with your class, whether it be
Okay.
like trusting your body or letting things go. So you meditate on this intention while you're flowing with your body, and then they kind of guide
Wow.
you through poses and breathing. So with each pose, you inhale and then exhale, inhale, exhale. So you're flowing and getting to know your body and your mind and where you can push yourself to. It's actually a lot more than what people just see. It's deeper mentally and physically. It's really healing. I love it. And they
That's
actually use it a
awesome.
lot for trauma, like people out of war, people who suffer from PTSD. It could just be for people who just want to go work out. Um, I think yoga is amazing place
That's
to start.
really cool. So it's not, yeah, a lot of people have the superficial, you know, you just
Yeah,
kind of go do some maneuvers, but they don't really respect or recognize the whole spiritual, um, internal aspect of it. That's really
yeah,
very, it
yeah.
sounds very spiritual. It almost sounds like it was, yeah, part of a spiritual practice.
hmm I think so too. Um, I think it's helped guide me more on like this journey of a higher level too. Because I think a lot more about my body and like paying attention to pain and listening to yourself and what your body needs and wants. And I think it's just like a lot of things tie into so many things with being aware of your higher self.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's something that comes with opening your mind to larger spiritual possibilities outside of the religious context. It's almost like the frameworks keep those ideas from being possible until you're able to, broaden and look at it all from a zoomed out perspective. But what was it that I wanted to ask? It was, so how did, because I found for me that once the, conspiracy stuff led to the spirituality, that kind of led to, once I figured out that I was this spiritual being and there's some divine nature in me and everything, then it led to a real sense of like empowerment, some sort of self-confidence that you feel better and you're like, oh, I am a part of everything. I'm just as great as anything else is. And so do you feel you kind of experienced that?
Yeah, well, to kind of tap into what we were talking about earlier is like your purpose.
Yes.
And I thought that was so cool that you brought that up because that's been like my main topic with therapy is like I felt just the other week, I was like, what is my purpose? What am I doing here? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I really
Yes.
thought about that and I was like, you know what, even just here in this moment, I think this is my purpose is to talk about these things that are festering inside, to understand things, to touch people's lives, to make them think, to love and encourage. And it is empowering. It makes you feel like you're not just this walking entity that's just eat, shit, shower, sleep, work. Like it's more than that.
Exactly.
And sometimes I think we can get so caught up in life and everything else that we start to forget that we are empowered and that we do make a difference and that we do have a purpose here. Even if it's just saying hi and complimenting somebody, like you don't
Yep.
know what kind of effect you have on people. And I wish that we could see that more as people, like that our energy
Exactly.
does affect other people.
Powerful. Yeah, one of the things I like to say is that we're changing the world whether we like it or not. And what I really mean by that is most of the time we don't notice how we're changing the world. And so a lot of people live very unconsciously. They just go around, like you were saying, the taskless consciousness. You wake up, you eat, do this, you go to work, come back, and you live for the weekend, and that's life. And then 70 years go by, and you don't know what happened.
Yeah,
And so,
dude.
yep. and that's been a big when I started doing my painting, and they started stacking up, and people started telling me, "Oh, you should sell them." And then at the same time, I was starting to get into this personal development, inner work, finding purpose and passion in life. And I was like, okay, so how, it's almost like once you find out what you like, then you have to find out a way to fuse what it is you like with how it can add value to where the world needs something.
Yeah.
And so that was the really confusing part, and I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. But that's I forget who came up with the quote, but it's like you match your passion or um, your passion with the world's hunger.
Mm,
But
that's awesome.
it's very interesting. My favorite quote is by Henry David Thoreau. It says, "If we advance confidently in the direction of our dreams and endeavor to live a life which we have imagined, we'll be met with a success unexpected in common hours." And I'm like, man, that gets me pumped up.
That's super awesome. I think I actually have his quote simplified in my room, and it says, "Go confidently towards the direction of
Of
the
your
life you imagine to live," or something like that. And
Yes, that's really
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, dude. See, hey.
Synchronicities, that's the universe.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot more synchronicities when you're aware and
Yep,
what's the word?
awake. Some people say awake. I'm not sure.
Awake.
But
I was gonna
there's
say,
some, yeah, there's so many
yeah,
different terms. It's kind of,
yeah. This is awesome. Thank you for taking the time to do this, and we
yeah,
should
for
do this
sure.
more.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I found that people definitely get value out of so much more value out of organic conversations rather than just a single person talking head video. And I
Yeah.
find that my favorite people that I get inspiration from, whether it's on YouTube or anywhere, the podcast, it's the back and forth conversations that get so interesting. And so it's definitely great to have another side of the conversation other than me trying to, other than people putting up with my rants all the time.
I think they're awesome. Yeah, I could just talk forever. So I'm like, I got dinner coming up, so
Oh, you're good.
I have to shut myself up because I could talk for hours about this stuff.
For sure, for sure. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll stay in touch, and yeah, let me know if you want to come back on.
I do.
All
You
right.
let me know.
All right, for sure.
All right,
Well,
Chase.
thanks for talking.
Thank you.
All right, see you.
I'll see you later.